Leviticus 5. When a person sins in that he hears a public curse against one who fails to testify, and he is a witness, he either saw or knew what had happened, and he does not make it known, then he will bear his punishment for iniquity. So there is false testimony. He's a witness. He knows the truth. He keeps quiet. He is going to bear the punishment for his iniquity. What would the punishment for his iniquity be? The punishment for his iniquity would be whatever the punishment is going to be the outcome. So if you knew something was stolen, what is the penalty for stealing? You would have that upon you for being a participant in covering it up and not revealing it. Or when there is a person who touches anything ceremonially unclean, whether the carcass of an unclean wild animal, or the carcass of an unclean domestic animal, or the carcass of an unclean creepy thing, even if, even if he did not realize it, he has become unclean and is guilty. Or when he touches human uncleanness with regard to anything by which he can become unclean, even if, even if he did not realize it, but he has later come to know it and is guilty. So we have touching of dead carcasses. So animals that have no life in them, no matter what they are, creepy things, domesticated animals, wild animals, they are unclean. You become unclean. If you touch human uncleanness in regards to anything by which he can become unclean. So we're going to get this later on. It's not spelled out here. Human excrement, unclean. Human bodily fluids, unclean. Anything coming out of the body, I think with the exception of milk. I don't think milk is mentioned in there. But any bodily fluids, discharges that come out of the genital region or open sores and wounds, those are unclean. So you come into contact with any of these and you don't realize it. Even if you don't realize it, you are unclean and you are guilty of uncleanness, not guilty of sin. You are guilty of uncleanness. Or when a person swears an oath speaking thoughtlessly with his lips, whether to do evil or to do good, with regard to anything which the individual might speak thoughtlessly in an oath, even if, even if he did not realize it, but he has later come to know it and is guilty with regard to one of these oaths. So, speaking thoughtlessly with your lips, even if it's, whether it's to do good or to do harm, it's just taking an oath without thinking it through. Taking an oath without thinking it through. You're in the heat of the moment. I swear on my mother's grave. Making an oath. Look, I will. Well, we could go with some thoughtless oaths, like whatever comes out of my house when I return, that is what I will dedicate to you. That is a thoughtless oath. That'll be one of those cases. So, when an individual becomes guilty with regard to one of those things, he must confess that he has sinned. So, see, it does seem like there could have been a way out. I want to say Othniel might be the name. I can't remember for sure who's the guy that sacrifices his daughter. And he must bring his penalty for guilt to the Lord for his sin that he has committed. A female from the flock, whether a female sheep or a female goat, for a sin offering, so the priest might make atonement on his behalf for his sin. So we have a way when you're making an oath, if you're doing something, you're doing that, you can have atonement made, you can have right relationship restored to, if if he cannot afford an animal from the flock, he must bring his penalty for guilt for his sin that he has committed 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons. So now we have what if you're too poor to bring an animal? You can bring lesser animals to the Lord, 1 for the sin offering and 1 for the burnt offering. So 1 is for sin, 1 is for burnt offering. He must bring them to the priest and present first the one that is for the sin offering. The priest must pinch its head at the nape of the neck, but must not sever the head from the body. So you are breaking the neck, but you're not severing the head from the body. Now, I know that we had the previous mention of it, but I don't remember the sever the head from the body in the previous part when you bring a dove or a pigeon. He must sprinkle some of the blood of the sin offering on the wall of the altar. The remainder of the blood must be squeezed out at the base of the altar. It is a sin offering. The second bird he must make a burnt offering according to the standard regulations. So the priest will make atonement on behalf of the person for his sin which he has committed, and he will be forgiven. Notice in the end of every of these, the priest makes the offering on behalf of the person, and the person is forgiven. It is a process that happens. The offering is made, the offering is given, and the person will be forgiven. Let me see if there's anything in the footnote there. The forgiveness will be on him, it shall be forgiven to him. If he cannot afford 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons, he must bring as an offering for his sin which he has committed 1/10 of an ephah of choice wheat flour for a sin offering. Okay, so any of you who have ever heard that a sin, without the shedding of blood, there is no forgiveness of sins, that is true, and it can be overly applied. Here, however, when you cannot afford it, there is a wheat offering of flour that can be made for sin. He must not place olive oil on it, and he must not put frankincense on it because it is a sin offering. So in a sin offering of flour, no olive oil and no frankincense. Straight up, it's the flour. He must bring it to the priest, and the priest must scoop out a handful of it as a memorial portion and offer it up as a smoke offering on top of the other gifts of the Lord. It is a sin offering. So the priest will make atonement on behalf of his sin, which he has committed by doing one of these things, and he will be forgiven. The remainder of the offering will belong to the priest like the grain offering. So here we have, if you are not wealthy enough to be able to bring an animal, you can bring a grain offering, and you will be forgiven. You repent, you come, you offer, you go through it. But this is a different grain offering than any of the others. There is no oil, and there's no incense offered with it. Then the Lord spoke to Moses. When a person commits a trespass and sins by straying unintentionally from the regulations about the Lord's holy things, then he must bring his penalty for guilt to the flock, a flawless ram from the flock, convertible into silver shekels according to the standard of the sanctuary shekel, for a guilt offering. Person commits okay, let me see here. Commits a trespass. Trespasses a trespass. So, okay. Commits a violation. 44. See the above note in straying. Yeah, the straying that we had up above. See, this has become a more common thing of the idea that the Old Testament has no forgiveness for intentional sins, only unintentional. And I think it's some of these like the word can go in this direction. Sure, absolutely. But some of these things are not unintentional, because when we get into some of the things, and we'll see, like, you can't unintentionally commit adultery. You can't unintentionally commit murder. You can have manslaughter where you don't mean to hit someone. That's a separate thing and dealt with separately. But to plan and to kill someone is intentional. Murder is intentional. So you can't unintentionally murder. So just saying, don't overplay that idea that there is no forgiveness for intentional sins. There is. Okay, from the regulations of the holy things, then he must bring his penalty for guilt to the Lord, a flawless ram. So now we're going to a ram instead of a sheep or a goat. And I guess a ram is a ram automatically a sheep? I don't know what a male goat is. It called a ram? It's not a ewe. But anyway, let's keep reading. And whatever holy thing he violated, he must restore and must add 1/5 to it and give it to the priest. So the priest will make atonement on behalf with the guilt offering of the ram, and he will be forgiven. So you steal 5 apples, you have to repay 6 apples. you have to add 20%, you have to add 1/5 to it and give it to the priest. So whatever you have done when you violate things, if a person sins and violates any of the Lord's commands, that must not be violated, although he did not know it at the time, but later realized his guilt. See, here it's making a big point of if he did it, but at the time he didn't know. There's a couple of times where it does this, but the other times I don't know that we automatically have to take it as unintentional. Here, where it gives the caveat to it, although he didn't know it at the time, I think the other can mean that, but it doesn't have to. Yeah, Ba Ram you and must bring a flawless ram from the flock, convertible into silver shekels. Now it's interesting. The only one that we've had convertible into silver shekels is the ram for a guilt offering to the priest. So the priest will make atonement on his behalf for his error that he committed, although he himself had not known it, and he will be forgiven. It is a guilt offering. He was surely guilty before the Lord. So, like the other ones that we had earlier, where it said unintentional sin, may not have fully just been unintentional. They could have just been he sinned, could have done it. Now here, when it is a fully unintentional sin, it's a ram. Notice the difference between the ones earlier that said unintentionally sin and violate. This one is very specific. We've shifted from sheep and goat, a year old from the flock, now to a ram.